After our intercourse between worlds destroyed the show, we're moving to a world where Twin Peaks doesn't exist anymore. And the only place it doesn't exist is outside of TV world in the present. And this is where we wake up after our destructive dream, in the real reality of the present, where there are no such people as Cooper, Laura, or Diane. Cooper becomes someone named Richard. See if you can guess why. Hint, hint, it's because we just destroyed the future of Twin Peaks for our kids. Laura becomes some stranger called Carrie Page.
Carrie Page.
Much to our dismay.
Carrie Page. That's
And Laura's childhood home is now occupied by the actual, real-life owner of the real-life Palmer house. Gee, I wonder why. Diane becomes this Linda person. Linda. And ironically goes back to being a tulpa, an imagined other consciousness. At the in-between motel, she is occupying the space between worlds where she becomes this other real-life Linda person. So in that moment, she's both people at the same time. When she's watching herself, she is simultaneously the real-life person who watches TV and the character who is being watched on TV. Dale Cooper, on the other hand, doesn't see a copy of himself at the motel. He is us, so he remains the us who is on TV, while we remain the us who are watching ourselves on TV. During the scene, Diane does all the work, while Cooper just kind of watches her do it. Of course, he's us, and we're watching TV. Just watching. Diane covers Cooper's face and begins to cry. Now, there is a valid interpretation that she can't bear to look at him because he's the man who forced himself on her. And he did. We did. And we're kind of doing it again. But there is another reason, and that is that Cooper is becoming who he is in real reality. The viewer in the real world. Agent Cooper is just us watching the show through the power of the camera. And Diane, being the TV character, is unable to see the real-life face of Agent Cooper, just like Gordon Cole couldn't in his game of reality.
Cooper was there, but I couldn't see his face.
We're there in the dream through the power of watching, but they can't. TV characters can't see the audience watching them. Yes, Diane can't bear to see the face of her character, and also she is compelled not to see it because TV characters literally can't read it. Once crossed over to the real world, we're still aware of the irony that we're watching the real world, and we can't be representatives in the show. So Cooper gets to remember his identity as Cooper, even though Cooper doesn't exist in the real world, and we're now watching a Twin Peaks that doesn't exist. This is the show we put on the air, a non-existent Twin Peaks. That old vehicle is gone. This Cooper is less of who we remember him to be, because he's not a TV caricature of a person anymore. Coffee is his investigative field. Just coffee. He does harm in the name of good. He's somewhat bad. Because in real life, we can't split ourselves into good and bad. We all have the capacity for both within us. Throughout the finale, we do what we've been doing the whole time we've been doing is happening, both as our representatives in the show and as viewers outside the show watching. We try to make Twin Peaks exist in a world where it doesn't exist. Twin Peaks means Judy's coffee shop, just like the Judy in the show. A white horse, just like the one Sarah Palmer saw. Ooh, that guy kind of looks like Bob, doesn't he? Carrie Page says she isn't Laura Palmer, but she has to be. Her last name is Sarah. Yeah. There was a missing diary page. Carrie Page must be the missing page, right? Yes. Chalfont and Fremont. I remember those names from watching the show. But Twin Peaks memes do not Twin Peaks make. The context isn't there for any of this. We both cannot see and outright refuse to accept that Twin Peaks is gone. We brought it back to the house and tried to force it to be what it once was, just so we could keep the closure out of the red order. And it killed the show all over again.
Years.
What year is this? Is it 1990 again when the Twin Peaks mystery was still alive? Is it future or is it past? It's neither. Twin Peaks died in the past, and this is Twin Peaks' future. screens, what we're seeing is an echo of what happened in the premiere. Not just the character, but the very concept and memory of Laura Palmer screams in agony, forcefully removed from television, even as we look the other way, trying to prolong the mystery. And then the show died. Over the eyes, darkness within our TV set. The power is cut off. We end on the image of us continuing to refuse that the show is gone because of what we did to it 25 years ago. This time, the Lynch Frost bumper is silent. No electricity flows anymore. We killed 2 birds with 1 season, and now there's nothing left to explore because there's nothing left to explain. Shadow, take me down with you for the last time.
Pink dresses that follow the Mitchum brothers around. In half the scenes they're in, they don't do much except stand around acting as eye candy. Perhaps this is why her name is Candy. It's no secret that Lynch appreciates beautiful women, and he repeatedly associates them with the beauty of everyday life that he wants us to appreciate. Another reason could be that candy is made of sugar, and Lynch once famously described sugar as granulated happiness.
Yeah, I'm heavily into sugar. I call it granulated happiness.
Candy's sugary personality certainly fits the bill. What are the Candy Girls doing in the other half of their scenes? They are making and providing food for coffee and cherry pie, courtesy of Mama and Shelly. Coffee and donuts, courtesy of Lucy and Candy. Meals on Wheels, courtesy of Laura, Donna, and the lovely lady with the double R. Lynch is using homemade food delivery by beautiful women to represent the love and wholesomeness of a family dinner, as opposed to the TV dinner that fast food that represents the fear and violence we enjoy while watching TV. The Candy Girls provide coffee, cherry pie, drinks, and homemade finger sandwiches for comfort. So for her to acknowledge their hearts of gold. The things she's concerned with are the number of TV shows that are available nowadays in Sin City. Or the air conditioning that's going to protect her from the heat and smog of modern TV.
It's going to be hot and smoggy tomorrow. We are so lucky to have air conditioning.
It's just like our dear director Cole. He needs technological assistance to hear the darkness of his own investigation, but he can hear the love, no problem.
I can hear you hot.
Let's describe what's happening in Candy's famous fly spotting scene. What's she doing? She's trying to kill a bug. Where is the bug? It's in the air, and it's trying to crawl into Rodney's house. What does she use? A TV remote. Just like Twin Peaks, a source of love tries to use TV to kill the bug in the air and ends up hurting someone else. Lucy tampered with the evidence in Laura's case when she tried to cure her gas by eating the chocolate bunny.
Do you use chocolate as a remedy for gas?
She had wind, and she tried to cure it by consuming love, which interrupted Laura's investigation. And now that Laura's gone, Twin Peaks is not about the bunny anymore. Or rather, it's about how it's not about the bunny anymore.
Not about the bunny.
Right before this scene, Foster's "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door is a hint that just like with Agent Desmond, most of David Lynch's symbols come in the form of fun. Now, Senorita Dido. She's a little more different. For her, we'll do the same thing as before, but I want to show you the kind of additional connections you can make with just a little bit of research. First, remember that the fireman is the spirit of balance, cinematic storytelling. He and Senorita live in the black and white realm of balance, a character that resembles the Twin Peaks music. Since the Twin Peaks TV series is a literal representation of the medium of television, we should probably think of the television series as representing the medium of cinema. Second, Lynch often says that there are ideas for every creative medium, and the creative process is the translation of those ideas to the medium.
I get ideas, and I fall in love with them after a certain period of media, or cinema is translated, or meaning is translated. You get meaning ideas, you get share ideas, you get, extravagant ideas, music ideas, and then you just translate it.
In the Fireman's Castle, you can see the many, many idea generators that power different creative mediums. There are two other special generators shown in the Fireman's Castle. There's one in front of the screen in his theater. This must be a generator full of ideas that are fueling the cinematic picture. And there's one that sounds an alarm in front of a record player playing music. This one must be full of ideas to power music and sound. The reason we would see these two special generators in the castle is because they often are filmed, so that they would be set up.
Cinema, to me, is finding picture moving together new times.
Now, who is Senorita Dido? She appears to be an assistant of some kind to the fireman. The fireman creates Laura Palmer, but it's Senorita Dido that puts her into the machinery and helps her take the train. For filming, Dido's role to translate the fireman's ideas to a medium. If this is the case, then perhaps she's not listening to music from the phonograph in the sound room, but instead translating the musical ideas she hears to the phonograph record. This is, after all, how some early films were shown, with a separate record playing on a phonograph to accompany the picture. But there's another detail here. When the Senorita walks into the theater, she's spotlit from behind, almost as if the picture on the screen is being projected through her. Perhaps she represents the physical medium of film itself. Perhaps this is an interesting hypothesis, but it's incomplete and there's no proof. That's where the research comes in. a strip of transparent celluloid coated with a light-sensitive emulsion of silver halide crystals in gelatin. Here's what silver halide crystals look like under an electron microscope during the crystal growing process. Silver crystals on transparent celluloid. Very similar to the senorita's dress made of silver sequins on transparent material. Could be a coincidence. Let's keep going. What about her name, Senorita Dido? Is it a reference to the founder and first queen of Carthage? Could be. I'm not so sure. Lynch likes to play games with words and pronunciation, like Judy and Jaude and Jaudai, so maybe we could try pronouncing her name another way. Senorita Ditto. Ditto is slang for copy, and it comes from a brand name of old carbon copy machines, often referred to as ditto machines. In a film production, the actual film strip goes through several copies, from the original negative out of the camera to an interpositive where color effects and sound are applied, back to an internegative, from which final positive copies are created. We could also think of shooting a film as copying information at a moment in time. The technical term for the ditto machine is a liquid or spirit duplicator. If spirit duplicator isn't a poetic description of the medium of film, I don't know what is. The fireman is the spirit of film, and Senorita Ditto is his spirit medium duplicator. He copies his ideas onto her, and she translates them to the screen. Interesting to think about, but still not as strong as it could be. Let's keep going. Cinema is sound and picture moving together in time. Early silent films were shown with some form of live music to accompany them. As technology progressed, films would be accompanied by sound from phonograph records. And eventually, sound film would be made, where sound is printed directly onto a track on the film strip right next to the picture.
My words that have been recorded on the soundtrack appear like this, as I am now speaking to you from the screen. Many of you perhaps never realize that voice and sound can actually be seen.
This is called optical sound, and is recorded to sound film and played back from sound film through the use of light, just like the picture.
Since the photographic film is affected only by light, it is necessary to convert the sound waves to corresponding changes in light. The sound waves produced by my voice are transmitted through the air to the microphone, where these sound waves are converted to changes in an electric current. These variations in the electric current are then amplified and used to control the light falling on the photographic film. The light that falls upon the photographic film is in the form of a fine, bright line extending transversely of the direction in which the film moves. The part of the film on which the line of light falls is called the sound track. In the reproducing process, a variable density sound record is run past a narrow line of light from a fixed source. The photographic sound record is used to produce a varying beam of light. This varying beam of light falling on the photoelectric cell produces variations in the electric current, and the varying electrical current is then converted back into sound waves.
This is all very interesting and technical, but what does it have to do with Senorita Ditto? Well, you need to know it because it explains a lot. The song that plays in the soundtrack when we're looking at Senorita Ditto in the sound room, called Slow 30s Room, was created by David Lynch and Dean Hurley using an instrument from the early 70s called an octagon, which is a kind of combination organ and sampler. All of the sound is produced through the use of an optical record, which employed the exact same optical sound technology used for film.
Come
the
on.
light shines through the waveform printed on a spinning transparent
Come
record
on.
to produce the sound.
Each disc has 57
Ooh. Nice.
except instead of running vertically along the film, you've got film soundtracks laid out in concentric loops.
That's kind of a big clue right there, but let me show you this small detail. While she's listening to this optical sound, there's a light shining onto her through the stereo waveforms of an optical track looking through. She's not just listening to this music, she's playing it back from her optical soundtrack.
She is silver halide covered sound film. And when the light shines through her in the theater, it produces a movie partially covered by the shadow of the picture idea generator to show us that the waveforms in the soundtrack are flat. Like in this case, we're watching a silent film. The fireman brings Laura Palmer onto her, and through her, Laura is projected onto the big screen. I rest my case. So hopefully these give you concentrated examples of the methods you can use to decode things for yourself. And hopefully, the hard evidence of the film meta in the Fireman Castle has strengthened my argument for the TV meta that's happening in the show. Now, I know that some people who are still hesitant to accept the TV meta idea hold the opinion that this conclusion isn't broad enough, and I'm ignoring all of the other stuff that Twin Peaks is dealing with. I understand, and I acknowledge that there's a lot more to the show than I was able to cover. However, David must have complete control over a film so that he can give us the experience he intends for us to have. He realized this for himself during the making of 1984's cinematic failure, Dune. Whenever interviewed about Dune, he laments that he sold out and wasn't able to properly execute his vision.
Looking back on it, I realized I started selling out on the project right from the very beginning.
Well, I never carried anything far enough for it to really be my own. I had the feeling that Dino and Raffaello wanted something, and then there was Frank Herbert's book, and trying to be true to it. So you're already locked into a specific corral, and it's hard to break out of that. I didn't really feel I had permission to really make it my own. That was the downfall for me. It was a problem. Dune was like a kind of studio film. I didn't have final cut. And little by little, I was subconsciously making compromises, knowing I couldn't go here and not wanting to go there. I just fell, into the beginning world. It was a sad place to be.
That's the big lesson. Don't make a film if it can't be without
After this, Lynch determined that he would never again allow other people to use his refused to direct because Showtime would only give him enough money to make 9 episodes instead of 15. This determination not to have his vision compromised did not mix well with TV. In addition to numerous other directors and writers shaping the show as they saw fit, Lynch was making the show for an audience that wasn't his usual audience. David Lynch fans are ready for art, ready for mystery, ready for his style, so he can present his ideas to them any way he wants. But your average 1989 TV viewer was not ready for any of
Wow, there's no grass.
stuck between an audience that didn't get it and a studio and production staff that had other ideas about it. Twin Peaks is unique among his work in the amount of compensating he had to do for other people's lack of understanding and trust in his vision. From the very beginning, Lynch had to give explanations that filled in the gaps to create a complete picture whenever the show's longevity was threatened. Every time it looked like the mystery was going to be taken from him, he had to crank up the dial on the symbols and revelations to reassert control over the production and course correct the audience so that Twin Peaks would not become the self-fulfilling prophecy that it became. This overcompensation is where much of the evidence for my thesis came from. If you observe what Lynch does when he's backed into a corner and forced to conclude things, you can see exactly which symbols and concepts take priority. Case in point, the red envelope.
We were editing, and it was about 6 o'clock on a very beautiful warm evening. And we went out to the parking lot. And in the parking lot, there was a car there. And I was moving against the car roof, and I was feeling how this warmth was
This is the famous story of how Lynch came up with the idea for the Red Room. And notice how it was the warmth on his arm that gave him the idea for controlling the fire of TV violence. But the Red Room might never have how we got what's now known as the international version of the pilot, which has an extra 20 minutes of footage that ends the pilot's story.
Because of the European enemy, I didn't have any idea. And I didn't really, wasn't really, focused on that. Just finishing the pilot.
Right.
But then the pressure came, to, someone said, you gotta fulfill this obligation.
Yeah.
It's part of the contract.
The Red Room and a couple other sequences from featuring Dream of the Electric series. In other words, the most important sequences in the show were originally created as an ending of the pilot. As such, they would have to contain many of the clues necessary to intuitively communicate this central message. Just in case the show never made it to TV, Luke was making sure that the pilot, including its ending, was a finished work, one complete idea. Is that true? Everything that follows it, season 1, season 2, the film, everything in those, all that stuff that I've been told I'm ignoring, can only follow and build on the complete message from this pilot. So let's run through the episode and see if the complete TV meta idea is there. Along the way, we can look at the bits of evidence I left out. Please keep in mind, a lot of the explanation for the pilot's symbols didn't come until later, but that doesn't mean these things didn't mean what they would later be shown to mean. We open on images from the sawmill, indicating that we are about to start snoring as we begin our TV dream. Welcome to Twin Peaks sign has 2 mountain peaks on it, resembling the sign ring of electricity traveling down the power line of electricity. Chief Martel finds Laura Palmer's body wrapped in plastic. Harry Esther removes the crutches to drop Mr. Bond on his hand, so Sheriff Harry Esther begins the investigation of the TV violence that grew out of the news. Wendy tries, here and at the scene of the murder, to communicate the depth of emotions we could feel in contrast to the shallowness of other shows. Sarah Palmer says in her there is fire. The ceiling fan blows the wind of the night back down from above as Sarah finds out Laura is missing. You can see a glimpse in Laura's bedroom because Laura's mystery is the glue that made the golden idea egg into the show. More peace when we see Major Briggs' kitchen, next to a pot of the coffee that fuels our investigation of the ET's egg. Also in his kitchen stands what I presume is a small statue of a transcendental medical. Then Holmes presents his business plan to replace the story sawmill with a stonehouse housing development. A roaring fireplace completes the analogy of corporate interests replacing small town wholesome mundanity with the destructive fire of TV violence for empty prepackaged capital gains. This reflects Lincoln's attitude towards TV at the time. He thought TV was the future of visual art, but it was being sabotaged by advertising and executives. And by the way, that's the reason why Lynch returned to TV in 2017, because we can get cinema quality pictures of sound at home at TV. Laura's father developed this first big project, mirroring that the destruction of beautiful mundanity is what gave birth to Laura's mystery. Later, the murder puts an end to the deal.
You found my friend Laura. She's been murdered.
Just as the mystery tries to slow down and end meaningless TV violence. Norma Jennings serves a bittersweet balance of coffee and pie at the meeting place of love. Shelley and Bobby are having a love affair, and they tease Heidi for some lovely activities of her own. I'll see you in my dreams, says Bobby. Not if I see you first, Miss Twin Peaks responds. Evil is defeated by seeing it for what it is. If Bobby is a bad boy, then seeing his bad self coming will keep him from getting into Miss Twin Peaks' dreams. The zeitgeist blows the mystery through the telephone pole trees. Attention-loving Aubrey replaces her balanced black and white shoes with a pair of fiery red heels, and puts her cigarette out in a Smokey the Bear ashtray. Let's see if Laura's mystery can't put the forest fire of TV violence out. In the radio wave painted hallway, this rock and roller, because rock and roll is what helped start the fire back in the 60s, does the waiting just as the police arrive. Elvis is in the airwaves, and the investigation is started. If you have a question, ask it. David Lynch commands that we try to solve the mystery for ourselves above a picture of Abraham Lincoln, because Lincoln is on the edge, and the city is made of copper, and copper is what the electrical fire tower. As Laura and Dave hear of the murder, the mystery will be closed into the city. Bobby Briggs is our first suspect, so now is the time to bring the audience in to our investigation. And oh, how sad it will be when close. Ron Epulaski wanders across the state line covered in cigarette burns, because where there's smoke, there's fire. Bob's fire has done serious damage to her mind, just as it damages the minds of people. The owner of the Golden Goose and gas station at Twin Peaks, representing David Lynch, is in love with Miss Twin Peaks, but is stuck in a loveless marriage to a negative Yankee who has a night pass and therefore can only see half of her situation. All the bad, none of the good. What's more, she lacks depth perception, like the viewers of Challenge TV. She wants to hang great so she can shut out the light and continue living in the dark. Deputy Hawk finds the first big clue in Laura's mystery and swizzles it around in an unnatural way that causes it to reflect flashes of investigative light on our station. As WC Field would say, I'd rather be here than Philadelphia, agent concludes. The exact opposite of Twin Peaks. Philadelphia is a dark, chaotic, fierce
New hat. Forgot.
Bobby is questioned about Laura's secret boyfriend. Shortly thereafter, we learn that Laura was secretly Audrey Ridley's baby brother. All of this invites us to ponder her secretive dual nature. The Long Lady flashes the light in the town hall to get our attention. Cooper talks about the killer's previous mission, the loner nobody for Leader Head, who represents the inconsequential victims of murder mysteries prior to their deeds.
No one came forward to tell the body.
Secret meetings take place in the meeting place of secrets, while the Roadhouse biker band plays Love Song. The reference to Marlon Brando in the Wild West is original. While enjoying the police's dream, Cooper tells Sheriff Truman he thinks he'll be in the police for a long time while he investigates this mystery which is meant to be unsolved.
Because, you know, I think I'm going to do this sometime.
Josie Packard tells Sheriff Truman she wants to see him right over here. Because right over here is where the camera can get a clear view of his owl-shaped portrait, because the owls are what carry the electrical fire and the plot of the show. Sarah Palmer has a vision and wakes up screaming. Bob can be seen reflected in the Palmer living room mirror, which resembles an owl's face. TV violence has worked its way into the signal the owls are bringing to the mirror of life that is our TV set. This is where the broadcast version of the episode ends. So we can see that most of the symbols are right there in that first episode, just in case this was a an identity for the killer, a method of stopping him, a lesson on why ending the mystery is bad, and some more explanation of the mechanics of each remake still out there. In the broadcast version, Sarah Palmer has a vision of Jacoby digging up James's half of Laura's necklace. But in the international version, Sarah remembers that she saw Laura's killer in her room. It's Bob. Leland is never blamed. If the show ends here, whatever tales of incest and filicide come later are not as important as Bob and what he represents. Leland calls Lucy looking for the sheriff, and Lucy sends Truman and Hawk to the Palmer house to make a police sketch of Bob. Cooper gets a call from Mike, who has privileged information about Teresa and Laura's murderer. This is the end of the story, and the fear in the air is winning, so Mike is waking Cooper from his dream.
Mr. Cooper, are you sleeping?
Then Cooper and Truman go to the hospital for Mike. Mike delivers the famous place to the home about the detective. All this is being handed out of the cycle of Mike says that he and Bob lived in the with Bob taking
Ah.
a mystery tree to save them.
But that mystery was sacred, and it held the other one. It was the clue, and the other one was about to fail.
But it doesn't. Mike's final words are, Bob, wait till it's your turn. Even though Bob is already dead, in this, David Lynch's message is revealed. Bob's evil cannot be defeated through violence, only through life's closure. The irony of this scene is that in ending Laura's mystery by revealing and then killing her murderer, Bob's true nature has won. The studio's forcing of the ending has caused Mike TV to fail in his mission, and the show is dead before it can even begin. The firelight from the candles gives way to the darkness within our TV show. Then, the famous dream sequence. 45 years later, Cooper sits in the Grand Canyon. Why 25 years? If this is an ending, it indicates that the mystery could have gone on to that point. This might make us wonder what had happened during that time that would lead up to this scene had the show not been cut short. The little man, Mike's severed arm, says, "Let's rock," to remind us that rock and roll on TV is part of what got us into this mess. Red curtains and the radio wave pattern on the floor indicate that this is the space between the real world and the TV. The shadow of the owl that carries the plot slides between two light strands, tracing the path the show might take as it travels along the power lines between telephone poles. The little man tells Cooper that Laura is his cousin. She's his parents' sibling's daughter.
My mother is sister girl.
And just like Cousin Lil, Cousin Laura is full of secrets that will just spoil through explanation. Laura says that sometimes her arms bend back. And later in the show, it's revealed that this is because she likes to be tied up when she's prostituting herself. Lynch uses backwards as an indicator of evil. For example, Lynch depicts the mother of all evil in season 3 as having backwards arms. Evil Mr. C has a backwards soul fingerprint. People stuck in the cycle of evil, like those married to the Red Room or the woman yelling 911 in season 3, all speak backwards. Laura is telling us about her true nature. But if the show had ended here, none of that stuff would ever have been revealed. So what proof will there be that backwards arms represent Laura's duality? Perhaps some knowledge of Roman mythology would help. On the table next to Cooper sits a Saturn lamp. Saturn is the Roman god of time, so it makes sense that the lamp is the first thing we see after the 45 years later lamp. Standing behind Laura and the little man is a statue of Venus, the Roman goddess of love. Both of these, time and love, are very important to the message of Twin Peaks. And there's another invisible Roman god present in the Red Room. Janus, the god of duality, depicted as having two faces, one looking forward to the future and one looking backward to the past. Laura's arms bend both ways, forward when she's doing good, and backward when she's doing evil. To confirm this association, Laura's doppelganger appears in the season 2 finale sitting on a chair with feet facing both forward and back. The good Laura strikes her famous meanwhile pose, which becomes her doppelganger in the seat that's facing forward. Her doppelganger then must move to the seat that's facing backwards to match her dual nature before she can step out. In TV world, electricity sounds like birds chirping, and the owl is
Oh no.
two birds that bring the golden signal down the power line.
Shoot.
There's always a soundtrack in a TV show. The little man proves it by dancing to it. The lighting is the evil that now remains in our TV show. While Laura Palmer whispers the secrets she's filled with into Cooper's ear, re-establishing mystery as the top priority even after this fourth ending. So we can see that even before the show made it to air, it was all right there. One complete idea
Nice head.
Dough. It drifts away.
Thank
The
you.
return hopefully brought it back
Who
to
is
its true
this?
world of Twin Peaks. So what
Thank you,
David
Julio,
Lynch
my
considers
friend.
to be the true world of Twin Peaks
New year,
history
new
is
hat.
the pilot. Just the pilot. Other directors and other
How are you
writers
tonight?
stepped in afterwards to add their ideas and take the story in other directions. So even other Lynch-directed episodes and the film were subject to the story as it unfolded outside of Lynch's control. If Mark and I had been working together, it would have been different. But we weren't, so it was the way it was. I went to a couple of meetings with writers and things like that, but unless you're right there and you're hands-on, that's one of the frustrating things about TV. There are
I'm amazing today.
Nice. That's awesome, dude. I feel very similar.
I finished all the tasks.
All the time. Wait a second. Amplifier?
For the first time in a while.
Nice. You must be feeling really good.
Exactly, feeling live again.
Nice. Feeling light. Feeling light. Yeah. When you have a lot of things to do, it's not very good for your consciousness, I think. Your head. I had a pretty bad day. Like, I was feeling very annoyed and without much patience today because I had a lot of things to do. But now it's time to relax. I'm done with my working time. Just gonna relax. Gonna move the animals. Are we done? No, we're not. Absolutely not.
To get it solved because they felt they were being strung along. Fearing that his message was getting lost, David Lynch stepped back in to direct the first 2 episodes of season 2 in an attempt to steer things back in the right direction and show people the mistake they were making. laying it on thick to make sure we're getting it. And hold the audience. This is the way things should be. Questions are more interesting than answers, and attention is more interesting. The giant has brought us some warm milk to put us back to sleep and bring the dark, ongoing dream of Lynch proves to a doubtful audience that he knows exactly where the mystery is going. Ben and Audrey play out a mirrored version of Leland and Laura's relationship, where good Leland wore Bob's evil mask to hide from Laura when he abused her. Good Audrey wears a prostitute's evil mask to hide from her abusive father. Meanwhile, Jerry taunts Blackie for being a junkie in the main office.
Nothing holding an eye on me.
Season 1 beat around the bush with the happenings at Ron and Jack. Here, Jerry is literally shining a light on his and Blackie's blackness as they tell him to put away. Mark Frost reports on the mysterious circumstances that burned part of the Packard sawmill to the ground because of the demand for closure. Over at the Palmer house, Leland Palmer takes up another. It's another lesson in how to interpret David Rich's symbols. If something doesn't make sense, describing it in the right way will give you the answer. Now, if the words sound clear and funny to your ear, a little bit jumbled and jivey, say mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy. But this clue is coming from Leland, possessed by Bob, so it's paired with a warning. A character getting scared so badly that their hair turns white is a popular storytelling trope. Leland's change of hair color coincides with a newfound peace with his daughter's death.
I realized that I had turned the corner somehow. I figured that was a great way to get a message from my heart.
This readiness to move on, this closure, is what feeds the fear in the air. Closure leads to fear, and fear brought on by closure is driving Leland over the edge. Leland goes back to Ben's office to show off his transformation from his dark-haired depression to light-haired lightheartedness. With closure, he's ready to go back to work trying to destroy the dream with the Ghostwood Project, and the three evildoers dance around with evil delight. While investigating the scene of Leo Johnson's shooting, Andy slapsticks himself in the face, revealing a key piece of evidence. The light of wholesome mundanity reveals the darkness under the surface. Leo's boots are circle blank because he is part of the golden circle of evil. But the exposure of this evil is how we are able to recognize and defeat it, and this insulates us from Bob's evil fire. The Circle brand logo is stamped into the soles of the boots. Rubber soles are a common way that electrical linemen insulate themselves from electric shocks while they work. What? Yes. To cement in this seemingly stupid rubber sole idea, Mike, the character who represents TV trying to insulate the evil, is a stupid
Have a good gaming night, my friend.
soul, and he's trying to keep
Thanks,
people from the
dude.
audience's soul
Have a great
selling us
rest of your night.
revelation of
Resting.
I got to go. See ya.
See ya, my dude.
damaged by the evil are missing their insulation and wind up shoeless, soulless, like Leo in his catatonic state turn to the evil that Twin Peaks has become, his souls don't make it back through. Consequently, W is soulless.
Think.
Your shoes?
The shoe thing is legit.
Checks out. Legit.
Technically legit. Donna is starting to get too deep in her quest for answers, and the darkness is rubbing off on her. Laura's sunglasses block out the light, and where there's smoke, there is fire. Then the log lady gives us the answer to the little man's riddle about guns coming back to stuff. While Cooper questions him, Jacoby tells us pretty directly about Laura's purpose in the show.
She was living a double life. She seemed to reap the kind of peace to herself. Maybe she allowed herself to kill.
He hints that Leland is possessed by Bob to prove once again that Lynch knew where things were going. Major Briggs tells his son about a hopeful vision he had for Bob's future. This taste of wholesome mundanity is an example of what Lynch wants for us, and it's described like it took place in the unified community.
Seemed to emanate from us. Alive. Deepest love for you and me.
At the end of the episode, Harriet Hayward reminds us what the show is supposed to be about, over and over and over.
It was Laura. It was Laura. It was Laura. It was Laura.
And the giant returns to Cooper to give us a closing message about slowing down and taking in the mystery rather than stampeding towards the answer.
Don't search for all the answers of the world. But that's the step by living one step at a time.
He disappears with a golden flash back inside a collective ocean of consciousness. So that first episode of season 2 is pretty dense with answers to questions motivated and warnings about what might happen if they take
Okay.
chances. And every single bit of it has to do with the TV better. And it didn't stop there. In the next episode, Lynch begins with a history lesson about the beginnings of Tibetan Buddhism.
The first Tibetan king to be touched by the Dharma was the Hakka himself. He and succeeding kings were collectively known as the Happy Generation.
Buddhism is about walking the middle path, and it's a tradition that would continue from the happy generations on through the centuries until it reached David Lynch in the form of the TM movement, leading him to create Twin Peaks to teach TV audiences about balance.
Agent Cooper, I am thrilled that you use the Dharma king to king ho ho ho. I really am, but right now I'm trying hard to focus on the more immediate problems of our own century right next to us. Albert, you'd be surprised at the connections between the two.
Donna takes over Laura's Meals on Wheels route, dressed like Elma from Scooby-Doo, to really sell the amateur investigator angle. She meets David Lynch and his grandmother, who teach us the lesson about the director directing our attention to the cream corn that represents our desire for the sickness of prepackaged murder mystery victims. In the previous episode, Lynch made several jokes about hospital food making people sick.
Pretty quick and unless you use it.
And that food resembles the disgusting slop that the grandmother is now refusing to eat. If we want to beat the sickness, we gotta eat the sickness. The sickness is Laura's mystery. Afterward, Lynch begins the Harold Smith storyline, which ends up being the most overt and dire warning against closure. Harold is an agoraphobic. He's afraid of light. What does he do all cooped up in his apartment? He grows orchids. And he literally collects the stories of other people's lives.
People come to me and tell me their stories about the world outside. I take their stories and place them in a larger context, a sort of movie novel.
He's a TV watcher who shuts out real life, trying to live vicariously through the lives of those whose stories he collects from the TV. And why does he hang himself? Because some amateur investigators try to steal Laura Palmer's story.
Are you looking for secrets?
He's possessed by fear of the absence of Laura's mystery and its children. Unfortunately, the amateur investigators in the audience didn't get the heavy messaging Lynch was blathering all over these first two episodes, so the fear in the airwaves would soon kill them too. In the 6th episode of season 2, Lynch appeared as Gordon Cole to start criticizing the audience.
You remind me today of a small Mexican chihuahua.
Why does he make this comparison?
What the hell is this about a Mexican chihuahua?
because a chihuahua is anxious and yippy, and he wished the audience could have settled down a little. In Lynch's direction of episode 7, he gave everyone the closure they so desperately wanted. He'd been as explicit as he could be while maintaining a mystery, and none of it got through. Episode 7 was just a repeat of the would-be and did-be closure of the international pilot. David Lynch says his goodbyes and leaves. Laura Palmer's identical twin husband is terrified because Laura's mystery is about to be pulled off. Mike Peavy feels the effects of the darkness creeping back in and becomes physically ill in the hotel that represents a TV set. I am a lonely soul, reads Harold's suicide note. He was no longer able to feel the love that resulted from the townspeople coming together as they grieved for Laura. Wholesome, mundanely silly Lucy is absent from the sheriff's station front desk. Audrey gets closure from her father. Shelley quits her job and says goodbye to Miss Twin Peaks. Love is leaving the meeting place of love. The childish audience is exerting full control over the gas station owner. Viewers were destroying the source of the show's sweetness, hurting themselves in the process, and they didn't even know or care.
You're so clumsy, Lee. I can hardly breathe.
At the roadhouse, the amateur detective regrets trying to take Laura's secrets by force.
He didn't deserve that.
The light of revelation shines on our faces, and the mystery dies for good.
You're going back.
The killing blow is dealt when Maddie's head is smashed into a picture of an elk with antlers that resemble a TV antenna. TV brought us Laura's mystery, and TV is taking it away. The giant apologizes that the film had to end this way.
I'm so sorry.
Everyone cries without quite knowing why, and the red curtain closes on Laura's mystery. The credits don't roll on Laura's prom photo. Laura is gone. Instead, they roll on a picture of Cooper pondering this sadness. In the wake of Lynch's departure, and with the core mystery snuffed out, Season 2 will continue utterly directionless and divorced from its original purpose. And that's understandable. Without knowing Lynch's intentions, how could anyone who was left continue things in a similar direction? But that sure didn't stop anyone from trying. Diane Keaton. It got very stupid and goofy in the second season. It got ridiculous. I stopped watching that show because it got so bad. What's more, a few of the more important clues ended up getting last-minute, ham-fisted, oversimplified. The little man danced because Leland danced.
What did a little man do in my dream? He danced. After